Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bearable Bull here. And I got this aggressively average content for you today, as shockwaves have been sent throughout the crypto market today. Elizabeth Warren stated she's building an anti-crypto army. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it so funny? Wasn't she the woman that pretended to be Native American just for clout? To me, she's nothing more than a crypto Karen. Oh my god, I just want to speak with your manager. Ladies and gentlemen, this is nothing more than political posturing. And if you think that the crypto industry is afraid of Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler, you have another thing coming. The reality is, after the Coinbase notice, and after this, the crypto industry is uniting together more than ever before. They're beginning to get emboldened. We're beginning to root for each other the way we always were supposed to. Innovation right now is under threat in the United States. And I think this was the warning shot that woke up the industry. Crypto Karen is the new name I'm going to be using for this senator. And in my opinion, she's going to risk getting voted out of office with this stance. The people are the ones that are going to speak. And on April 18th, Tom Emmer and other members of Congress are going to give Gary a piece of their mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking forward to it. And before we get into anything else, I want to give you all a great clip from an interview Tom Emmer had discussing this horse stance the US is having on crypto and what he believes it's all about. Towards the end, he echoes something Ripple and Brad Garlinghouse have been stating for years now. And it really is beginning to feel like this is our last stand.
Is there a war on crypto in the United States? I wouldn't have previously said those words, but it feels like this year crypto has increasingly been under attack in various ways that I'm sure we'll explore. Does the U.S. hate crypto, Representative Emmer? What's going on here? Can you help us make sense of this?
Well, I mean, that's a much broader question. If you're talking about U.S. citizens who believe in the right to self-determine, who believe in liberty and, the fact that their government's supposed to work for them, we love it. Right? We love Web3, the ownership economy, the idea that we can do business directly with one another and we don't have to have intermediaries. Not that we'll never need them, but we get to choose them, right? When you talk about the U.S., Ryan, what I would define that as is the centralized bankers and government. Those are the ones, let's just go back to 2008 when they messed up this economy the last time. Because their poor monetary policy led us to a place where a lot of people suffered, a lot of people were hurt. That's when you have the Satoshi white paper that shows up. That's when the Bitcoin experience begins. And I believe a lot of these central bankers, both here and around the globe, but let's just focus on the U.S., some of our biggest central bankers, not just the Fed, but some in the private sector, were looking at people that were doing this Bitcoin thing. And I guarantee you, Ryan, they were going, oh, look at those kids. Isn't that cute? Playing with their virtual money. It's like a video game that they're doing. And then it goes on for about 2, 3, 4 years. They go, uh-oh, this thing's actually picking up steam. There might be something here. And so then they tried to kill it, in my opinion. Their goal was to try and stop it. They couldn't. So guess what? The last few years, they've been trying to swallow it up. This is the discussion about CBDCs. This is now the discussion about Fed now. I mean, their whole thing was, let's get you people and your audience, let's get you on board with central banking in the digital age, which is nothing more than a surveillance tool for government. But guess what? There are too many of us that say no. There are too many of us that are going to stand in the way. So I look at what's happened in just the past few weeks. There definitely, a lot of people talk about, is there a choke point 2.0 trying to debank crypto? Well, you got to tell me, is this a coincidence that we lost Silvergate, Silicon Valley, and Signature all within a matter of days, a couple of weeks. I don't think there is any coincidence, gentlemen. The closure of crypto and tech-friendly banks like Silvergate, Signature, and Silicon Valley have left the crypto industry largely unbanked. And I think the attitude of our government regulators right now, I think the attitude of our cabinet members, whether it's the Treasury, whether it's the Fed, whether it's the SEC, CFTC, is all taking a negative aspect or view of what we're trying to do. And as a result, I think they're risking sending the innovation we've been trying to protect right here in this country right across the ocean.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that you've heard Tom Emmer's take, please watch this from Brad Garlinghouse. He states for the chair of the SEC, Gary Gensler, to assert that he dictates what a security when it comes to crypto assets is, and not the legislation from which this agency derives power, is beyond comprehension. It's time for elected officials in the United States to take notice. When you behave like an autocrat running a $2.2 billion agency, why would you ever want to provide clarity about what's in or out? Without clear jurisdiction, ambiguity masquerades as power. And this goes hand in hand with the frustration I feel about Crypto Karen's stance. Crypto Karen and Mr. Burns are in bed together, producing an anti-crypto army of children. And personally speaking, this is where we all are taking this massive stand. What you all don't understand is that they're trying to dissuade all of us from wanting to own crypto by passing harsh regulation so that incumbents, the billionaires, and the trillion-dollar institutions can get in pennies on the dollar so that then they can flip the switch, send prices to the moon, and then have all these institutional products ready for all of you to get dumped on, to get marketed to as their exit liquidity. Rinse, repeat. Ponzi scheme continues. And then, with all of that, they'll usher in their central bank digital currencies. Here from Wall Street Silver, it states the EU is going to cap cash and crypto payments that can be accepted by persons providing goods and services. And they're setting limits of 7,000 euros for cash payments and 1,000 for crypto transfers. All of these are steps towards a central bank digital currency. And we are so close to CBDCs being adopted in all these major nations that they're actually beginning to protest this in the UK.
You lose cash, and this is what we must not let them do. When we lose cash, if we lose cash, and you've only got central bank digital currencies, the computer will know what it is you're trying to do before you even do it, and they will prevent you from doing it. If, for example, they say you can't leave your house more than 5 miles, you try and buy a bottle of water 6 miles from home, you won't be able to. I'm not kidding. So many reasons why you should retain cash. It's offensive that the politicians believe that they have a right to all of your information at all times.
And ladies and gentlemen, that right there is an important message. That man is 100% awake. And what all of you need to understand is we're on the precipice of global CBDC adoption and a financial revolution that is headed to a climax of a moment. Tensions are rising on the planet between the East and the West. You don't believe it, it's still true. The de-dollarization of the world and the pivot away from the traditional SWIFT system is happening in real time. On my Instagram earlier today, I had this post up showing the number of examples all from this week of the de-dollarization happening across the globe. Not only that, but the pivot away from the dollar towards the yuan. Saudi Arabia partners with China to build a Chinese oil refinery for 83.7 billion won, or $12.2 billion. Here we see that Saudi Arabia entered into a trade alliance with China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and 4 other Central Asian nations to step further away from reliance on the dollar. China and Brazil are going to be settling trades in their own currencies, and they're ditching the dollar. China and France have completed the first LNG gas trade using the Chinese yuan, ending reliance on the US dollar for energy trades. China and the UAE have completed the world's first yuan settled LNG trade, in a blow to the US dollar dominance. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has considered dropping the dollar, euro, yen, and British pound for their local currencies for financial settlements. And here, there's apparently been an operation called Operation Sandman that's allegedly a collaboration of 100+ nations in agreement to simultaneously sell off their US Treasury holdings, and it will be sent back to the US to collapse the dollar in real time. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these things happening, these mass bank failures, ISO going live, these nations working in unison to ditch the dollar is no coincidence. And do you also think that the tensions between Russia and the United States right now are a coincidence either? Absolutely not. Every single time there's been an attempted de-dollarization, America gets feisty. Ladies and gentlemen, to cap off this video for today, I'm going to show you the number of examples throughout the last couple decades where nations tried to build their own monetary system and how America reacted. We have had the privilege of having the world's reserve currency, but we've abused it. We've sanctioned nations, and then we've attacked other nations that have attempted to make their own financial system. The reason this happens is because the key to the US empire is the US dollar. And as that's gonna fall right now, so will America's grasp on the world. But if history proves to be correct, we're not going down without a massive fight. Over the next few days, this is where the bull is going to get very geopolitical, as you need more context for every single one of the XRP Army members to know exactly why and how things are going to happen. Stay the course, my friends. It will be a bumpy road, but like a phoenix out of the ashes, the XRP community will become the new 1%. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bearable Bull here. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. Now I'll be back tomorrow with another video.
In October 2000, the president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, announced they would no longer be selling oil in US dollars, only in euros. Which on the surface is an innocent change. What's the big deal? The big deal is that Iraq has the 5th largest petroleum reserves in the world, and in the 2000s it had become the world's 5th largest oil producer. So when Hussein decided to start selling oil in euros instead of dollars, the US wasn't too happy. By February 2003, he has sold over 3 billion barrels of oil for 26 billion euros. A month later, the US invaded Iraq.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations
In an operation ironically called Operation Iraqi Freedom. They overthrew Saddam, and by June, just 4 months later, the country was back to selling oil in dollars. Years later, a number of US officials started to let the truth seep out. Former head of US operations in Iraq, General John Abizaid, said, "Of course it's about oil. We can't really deny that." Former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan wrote in his memoir that, quote, "I'm saddened that it's politically inconvenient to acknowledge what everyone knows. The Iraq War is largely about oil," end quote. and former Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said the same in 2007. Quote, "People say we're not fighting for oil. Of course we are." End quote. Venezuela, 2002. Coincidentally, Venezuela also has large oil reserves. In fact, they have the largest proven oil reserves in the world. At the time Hugo Chavez was in charge of Venezuela as the dictator president, he planned to start selling oil for euros instead of the mighty American dollar. Well, we can't have that now, can we? So in 2002, the US backed a coup against Chavez, which ultimately failed, but it crippled the country and its economy. Empires are built on oil. Yet despite having the largest oil reserves in the world, today Venezuela is one of the poorest economies in the world. Do other factors play into that? Many. We've talked about a few of them on this channel before. But going against the US is probably a big no-no. Libya, 2009. Eerily similar to Venezuela and Iraq, Libya has the largest oil reserves in Africa, and they weren't doing that bad. They did a great job managing all those oil revenues, building up a 143-ton gold reserve according to WikiLeaks. They had the highest GDP per capita in Africa, and Libya was on track to become the most influential country in Africa. And also similar to Venezuela and Iraq, Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, suggested all Muslim and African countries buy oil from Libya using a new currency backed by their giant gold reserves instead of US dollars. In other words, they wanted to sell oil in exchange for gold instead of US dollars, and other major African governments were ready to support. But I think we can all guess what happened next. Years later, it was discovered in Hillary Clinton's emails that NATO really wanted to overthrow Gaddafi's government, mainly because of this plan for an African gold-backed currency, supported by Libya's oil reserves. This was Libya before, and this is Libya today. Why? Because each of these countries tried to break away from using the dollar as payment for their oil, and each of them faced the consequences of America's wrath. Out of all of them, none were able to recover from America's interventions in the name of freedom and in taking down an axis of evil. All these countries had problems, but all of these countries had huge economic potential despite their dictator leaders. But as soon as they moved away from selling oil in dollars, the US swooped in and quickly put an end to the party. And they're not alone. Which begs the question, why is it so important for oil to be only sold in US dollars? What's the big deal? Why is America so quick to liberate people as soon as this oil for dollars arrangement is threatened?
Why do I hold XRP? Because Ripple's the chosen one to lead the new global digital payment system, and they use XRP. In 2013, the Federal Reserve began looking for faster payments options. 2 years later, an action plan was born and a federal payments task force was created. It included one company focused on crypto, Ripple. In 2014, the World Bank and Better Than Cash Alliance, which includes the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, and the governments of 32 countries, put out a report called The Opportunities of Digitizing Payments. 1 year later, the Better Than Cash Alliance featured one crypto company on their website, Ripple. Today, Better Than Cash Alliance and all other UN initiatives are focused on a single agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. You can see the SDGs logo on Bill Gates' lapel, world-leading companies, the Better Than Cash Alliance website, and on the UN's official exchange, Exchange. What crypto is Exchange officially utilizing for their carbon credit solution? XRP. The world will move to a new international standard for exchanging electronic messages between financial institutions by 2025 called ISO 20022. Who was the first ISO 20022 member focused on distributed ledger technology? Ripple. Who's partnered with over 300 financial institutions including Bank of America, American Express, PNC, Santander, SBI, HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of England, India, Singapore, Scotland, Australia, and Indonesia, the largest banks in Japan, Canada, Egypt, the Middle East, United Arab Emirates, Thailand, Morocco, Bhutan, South Korea, Brazil, and Latin America? Ripple. Who is a former employee overseeing the Federal Reserve? Ripple. A former employee overseeing the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock's digital asset division? Ripple. Leading Australia's CBDC effort? Ripple. Who hired a former Treasury of the United States? Ripple. 2 former Federal Reserve attorneys to their board? Ripple. 2 former Clinton and Obama advisors, former Minister of Defense and Economics of Germany, former business director at Swift, former Swift board member, former CFO of PayPal, former head of the DTCC, former chief business officer at Uber, former VP of Amazon, and former SEC chair on their legal team? Ripple. Who's a member of the Digital Pound Foundation, Digital Dollar Project, Digital Euro Association, Mojaloop, IMF's high-level advisory board on fintech, Hyperledger Blockchain Consortium, Open Payments Coalition, Faster Payments Council, Global Payments Steering Group, Cross-Border Working Group, International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, Crypto Climate Accord, University Blockchain Initiative, World Wide Web Consortium, and a featured partner of the World Economic Forum with 3 members of their team directly listed on the WF website? Ripple. Now, does Ripple and XRP sound like they're going to disappear, or do they sound like they're part of a much bigger plan? You decide.